Good evening. Somewhere tonight a man is felling timber in a frozen forest, or pouring concrete on a scaffold in a foreign city, and he is earning a real wage for it. He will see almost none of that money. Most of it will vanish before it ever reaches his hands, taken by the very government that sent him abroad to earn it. This is not a robbery in an alley. It is a system run by a state, and the state calls it employment. Tonight we trace one North Korean worker's pay dollar by dollar and ask a simple question: where does it actually go? I'm Marty. Let us begin. Story 1. Start with the basic fact, because everything else grows out of it. A North Korean laborer is dispatched overseas to work, and he works hard, often in brutal conditions, for long hours that would not be legal in most of the world. An employer pays a wage for that labor. It is a genuine wage, negotiated and real. But the worker himself is not the one who collects it. The money is paid instead to the North Korean state, or to companies and handlers acting on its behalf. Only after the government has taken its share does anything trickle down to the man who swung the axe or mixed the mortar. He earned the money. He does not control the money. That gap between earning and keeping is the whole story, and it is a wide one. Story 2. Now watch how the wage gets thinned, layer by layer on its way down. First there is the state quota, a fixed sum every worker must hand over simply for the privilege of being sent abroad. Then come the loyalty payments to the ruling party, framed as duty rather than deduction. Then the so-called voluntary donations, which are voluntary in name only, collected on schedules and in amounts nobody dares refuse. And at nearly every level there stands a supervisor, a minder, a handler, each taking his own cut for watching the men and reporting on them. By the time all these hands have reached into the envelope, there is very little envelope left. The worker is not paid a wage minus taxes. He is paid a wage minus almost everything. Story 3. This is not new, and it is not a rumor invented by outsiders. Consider the men who were sent to log in the forests of Siberia, a practice that goes back decades. Former laborers from those camps have described the arrangement plainly. They told of long seasons of dangerous work in bitter cold, and of wages that existed mostly on paper. By their own accounts, a worker was fortunate to keep even 10% of the wage he was said to be earning. Reportedly, in the worst arrangements he kept even less. 10%. 9 out of every $10 gone before he could feel it in his pocket. These are the words of the men who lived it, and they have been telling the same story for years. Story 4. Bring it to the present, and the arithmetic only grows more brutal. In recent accounts, the money a worker is actually allowed to keep for himself has been reported as low as $10 a month. $10 for a month of labor far from home. Meanwhile, the state extracts its quota from that same worker, and those quotas have been documented at roughly $600 to $850 per worker. Set those two figures side by side, and the design becomes impossible to miss. The man keeps 10. The state takes hundreds. The worker is not the beneficiary of his own labor. He is the instrument of it, a device for converting hard days into hard currency for someone else. Story 5. So ask what that currency actually buys, because that is why the whole machine exists. The wages skimmed from these workers flow back as foreign money, and foreign money is precisely what the regime is starved for. It helps prop up a state that cannot earn enough honestly, and according to international investigators, it helps finance the weapons programs that have made the country a byword for danger. That is the reason the wider world eventually moved to shut the practice down, ordering these overseas laborers sent home. The point was not cruelty toward the workers. The point was to close a pipeline that turned their sweat into the state's war chest. When you follow the missing pay far enough, This is where a great deal of it lands. Story 6. And here is the part that turns exploitation into a trap. You might reasonably ask why the worker does not simply refuse or walk away or keep his own wages and let the state complain. He cannot. His passport is taken from him the moment he arrives, so he cannot travel, cannot leave, cannot even prove who he is without permission. And far more powerful than any document is the family he left behind. They remain inside the country, within easy reach of a government that punishes relatives for the sins of one man. To object is not merely to risk your own job. It is to risk the people you love. A locked door in front of him, and hostages behind him. That is why he keeps working and keeps handing it over. Story 7. So let us settle the account. A man crosses a border, gives his years and his strength to genuine labor, and earns real money for real work. Then a state that did none of the lifting takes the overwhelming share of it, thins what remains through quotas and fees and loyalty and cuts, leaves him perhaps $10 a month, spends the rest propping itself up and building its weapons, and secures his silence by holding his passport and his family. The worker does the labor. The state takes the pay. And then, with a straight face, it calls the arrangement a job. It is not a job. A job is when the person who does the work keeps the wage. This is something older and uglier, dressed in the language of employment. Remember the man in the frozen forest, and remember who is really being paid. I'm Marty, and good night.